Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the Stallion 500 Shins by STX. If you remember, in a part of last year, I was able to work with STX and get a nice group of people together and have them test out different models of their protective gear and sticks. People got to choose between the Stallion 500 and they also got to choose between the Surgeon 500 shins, shoulder pads, and elbow pads. As you saw in my previous review of the Stallion 500 shoulder pads, now we get to see that I also went with the Stallion 500 shin pads. So a big thank you to STX. Of course, I mean they were so giving, they were so helpful, they were so willing to give everyone, all the group of people the best of what they could come up with. So if they chose to mix and match Stallion, Surgeon, this and that, they were so easy to comply and work with everyone. I was very happy about that. That showed that their customer service was willing to go through the roof. So with the Stallion 500, there are certain aspects to it. This is a pretty decently hard shell. It does flex a little bit here, so it's not too bad. But right off the bat, the impression was, the foam that this is made out of, most of them have cloth and a little bit of foam. This one is just straight foam, and then we'll talk about this in a minute. So the weight was really a big thing for me. These don't weigh very much. I was very surprised at how light they were, and it's not like I'm really going to be worried about a pair of shin pads slowing me down. I mean, I'm slow anyway, but it was kind of cool to see the innovation of how they implemented a lot of their work with lacrosse over into the hockey sense. I left the tags on, they're gross. So starting off, not just this, but there's also a nice thin foam. Now, I do have an issue with this foam. Up here, the foam is a little thicker. You can tell that it's a dual density. The inside is nice and soft. The outside, you can tell there's a plastic, but there's also some thicker, heavier duty foam. The sides right here at the calf protection on the outer part of the inside part of the leg, it's not very great. It's literally just a thin piece of cloth, basically, and my biggest concern was this band. This is not stretchy at all. This is about as far as it can get. So for those of us who don't skip leg day, that's very hard to fit into. I actually, what ended up happening was I had to fold this inward and just use tape on my shins. I hate using tape on my shins, but that's the only choice that I had. Another different part to it was they have this big huge strap. It's called a 360 plus strap. So what it does is it literally wraps around the entire shin, comes all the way around, and then you just go ahead and connect it on here and keep it nice and tight right below the knee where you want. Well, that also posed an issue for me because I don't normally use these. I use just the bottom strap, so it was a little bit of an adjustment to get used to. Nothing really negative to say about that, only because it's long enough for me to not have to worry about it. It was still there, but I didn't have any pinching or anything, and it's also so soft. It is ridiculously soft. I can't even begin to describe how soft this strap is, but how stretchable the material is. Moving on to the inside liner. This did pose a big concern for me because it's got a nice little donut here, and as you can see, it is pretty thin. It looks thick right here, but that's not really a foam. That's kind of like a sponge. I did on the other pad, I did actually open this up and stitch it back together, and it was just kind of like a sponge. So I was kind of disappointed with that because, you know, STX is a really good company when it comes to protective, and I feel like they really slacked here. But there is a plus side to this. Due to the concern of a lot of people getting cut by skates, STX actually innovated this by implementing a anti-cut resistant band. So when you put on the shin pad, you slip this over your foot, and before you put your skates on, you slip it over your foot, and it covers this little area right here, where usually it's more exposed, or a lot of players do get cut on their skates from another skate. So it was kind of cool, and I did step on this. It came away unscathed, so that was definitely a plus. Now the negative side to it is, because the pad is so tight, when wearing this, it actually makes it nearly impossible for me to have any movement with my skate. Turning had to change up. I normally flop my tongues. This made it actually a little bit harder to flop the tongue. It made it a lot harder to lean forward without any pinching. So I was suffering a lot of pinching, and I just think that if they would have made this Velcro to where you can adjust the comfort level to it, or just, you know, provided a sock on its own that you slip on and then put on the shin pad, that would have been a lot easier. I think that would have saved a lot of trouble, and in my case, an ankle injury that did keep me out for a good portion of, I'd say, about 3 or 4 weeks, just until like the bruising and the tenderness went away. Back to the shin pad. So I mean, you just go ahead and you Velcro this in, and now I don't want to break out my regular shin pads that I wear. I wear a pair of Easton Pro Stocks, but there is an issue there. When it comes to any type of shin pad, there's usually a nice sizable gap between the shin pad and the padding that goes into contact with your skin. Now, you can see that there is a decent gap right here, but unfortunately, when you put on the shin pad, your shin is extremely flush to this. Now, not as bad as the Surgeon, sorry. The Surgeon is so flush to this, you literally feel every shot. I actually had a pretty big issue with that when I did test out the Surgeon. I felt like my leg got broken. I had to go get it checked out. But this one at least gives you a little bit of a sling, not too much. I mean, there's only just that part, and the rest is so up close. So I think the idea is there by STX, but I think they kind of missed the mark. They should have made this a little bit of a bigger gap, so it causes that sling action between the hard shell and the padding. Now let's talk the padding though. This padding is awesome. This is basically, you know, their foam padding that you also saw on the elbow pads and the shoulder pads. This does not catch any smell, does not catch any sweat. It's, you know, it's basically a foam, so it's never going to absorb any sweat or anything. You can see some gross dirt left over from my shins, but from the sweat, but it didn't permeate it. So that was at least the cool part. The issue, however, is that it's not thick enough, so it doesn't feel like you're protected. If I push right here, I'm actually feeling directly onto the shell. That is very dangerous. If a shot hits you, you absolutely feel it. I felt quite a few shots. It got to the point where I actually felt like it was a little bit too dangerous. Like I said, there are some improvements that STX can make, and hopefully they are listening, because the idea is there. It's a possible game changer. It's just a matter of doing it. Like for one, either make this more stretchy or add about 2 more inches. 2 more inches will give you a lot of wiggle room, especially for those of us, like I said, we don't skip leg day, and we need a shin pad that's able to wrap around our leg. Another one thing though that is neat, some shin pads do offer it, is this. The little above the knee pad, it is able to actually be unvelcroed and stretch outward, so you can have a little bit more coverage between the top of the knee and up to where the pant meets it. I did have that issue with my Eastons, and I did have the issue with the different pair of Bowers that I had previous. I'm glad that at least one of them pays attention and does what they can to, be able to help out. So if you're a shorter person or you wear longer pants, you can bring it down. If you wear shorter pants, and you're a taller guy, you can stretch it out. I wear a +1 on my pants, so I no longer have to have that issue or worry about it anymore. Overall, it was a good project to test out for them. I was very happy to test out for them. I think STX is onto something big, something innovative. It did not fall on its face in my eyes. It just needs to be worked over a little bit more, and that way the feedback can be used as a correction, and I think the players will be a lot happier. Everyone was happy when they used it, up until a little bit of impact just started kind of taking its toll on people, and then we came to the realization that there is room for improvement. There is things that need to be done. Another thing is, they say 15-inch, but placed next to my 15-inch shin pads, my Bowers, and my Eastons, these tower over them. So what I did was I took them to a shop and I stood them up next to a 17-inch, and this is just slightly shorter than a 17-inch. So this is about a 16.5-inch, give or take. So I think there was maybe some misdirection when it came to writing down the sizing. The 15 is more like a 16, and the 14 is more like a 15. So definitely keep an eye out for that. The sizing is going to be running a little bit bigger if you are going to be making the choice when they do come out with the new generation with their new hopeful improvements. Would I recommend this shin pad? I would if you were a lower level beer leaguer, D League, maybe some C League. Don't jump in front of shots. The protection is there, but it's not going to be that great for this model, especially at the knee. I did notice when I did fall on my knees a few times, I came up pretty sore. So I'm going to go ahead and give that part a negative as well. Overall, on a scale of 1 through 10, I would give these a 5. There's room for improvement. The ideas are there, but it just needs to be worked and kind of revamped and more protection added. As far as looks, aesthetics, I do like the look of the black and the yellow, or lime yellowish green, I don't know. It is kind of cool. It does look sleek. A lot of guys did look over and say, hey, those are neat. And a couple of other guys said, hey, those look like my RS shin pads. So it just kind of depends. So would I recommend this? Like I said, I would recommend this to your lower level beer leaguer or guys who are coaching kids. But if you are playing a higher level hockey, I would not recommend it. Maybe for practice, but not for a game where you're trying to block a shot if you're one of those higher level guys who plays contact. This is not the shin pad for you. So other than that, I personally wouldn't buy this shin pad, not until the new improvements are visible and have been made. So therefore, I do not recommend this. Like I said, unless you're coaching kids, or you're coaching, doing private lessons, or you're playing beer league where nobody can lift the puck, that's about the only thing I would suggest it for. The idea is there. Like I said before, I think The sleeve is a very bright idea, but if they're going to be doing this, they need to add some serious padding over here, create a bigger sling, create a bigger sling space so you're more protected and you feel less shots, and maybe thicken up that foam. I mean, when you buy Jofas, their foam was like 1/2 inch thick for a reason. So thanks again to STX. We're really happy to be working with you guys and to have helped you guys out. And, I think everybody overall was happy in one sense or another, especially the elbow pads. A lot of guys were extremely happy with the elbow pads. I was extremely happy with mine and my gloves. It's just unfortunately the shin pads were about the only thing. So if you have any questions, comment below, subscribe somewhere over here, share it with your friends, share it with your family, your loved ones, and like I said, ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them for you. Take care, and thanks for watching.